Is up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Rugby Swag. We got a great show for you. We're going to be talking Capetown 7's results. Man, we are going to be hearing, does the Mexico have an MLR team on the way? Yo, looking into it, Eddie Jones, new head coach for Japan. Are we going to be getting a repeat of last time? Or are we just going to be seeing the same old, same old? Also, Project Popolo. What is that all about? Yo, it's changing the game for referees. Women's Rugby World Cup in 2025, announcing venues, letting people know. Of course, Rugby League promoing. We got that and more, y'all. This is a brand new episode of Rugby Swag. You don't want to miss it. But in the meantime, yo, let's get to this intro.
I think the minute I stepped on a practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team. And I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro, right?
And I walk around with a rugby ball sometimes and they're like, what is this child on?
It looked like it was a heavy hit.
It's up, it's not up.
You know, that's the first time I played like professionally.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there's two Scottish guys, and they said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
That rugby is a game for all shapes and sizes, all cultural aspects.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are awesome."
Yo, welcome back. My name is GiftTime Bailu. This is Rugby Swag. And as one person asked me, really live? Yes, we are doing this live because that's what we do. If this is your first time here, I welcome you through. And if it's not, yo, thank you for being able to be a support and consistently trying to be part of changing the rugby narrative, maybe more or less, but learning more about what's going on in rugby and the people that are doing things out here with it. You know, and of course, guys, you know, before we really get started into it, I really want you to know, I need you guys to like and subscribe onto this, man. Tell your friends about this because this is what we do. Of course, we always have to replay, but this is what we really need you to do. And if you want to be able to converse with us and converse with me with it, yo, you guys can absolutely go and like us on social media. Check us out at Rugby Swag Show on Instagram. Check us out on X at GiftTime. And of course, GiftTime Rugby everywhere else. Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. Yo, Abel Rose, up, man. I appreciate you. King as well. Thank you very much for the support early and often right here. And of course, y'all, if you guys are not able to catch it live or you're not able to catch us on social media, definitely listen to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends about it. Look, we're trying to spread the news, big it up, and be able to be the platform that also adds to it. A little bit of an American side, a little bit of a diverse side. But hey, man, all the end, it's a rugby side, and that's what we want to be about on this one. Guys, like I said, we have an amazing show, a lot to talk about this week as we get closer and closer to Christmas and everything's sort of shutting down as the time goes on from there. But before we get started, you know, we got to support the people that support us. So we'll be right back with our first subject of the day. Going to be looking into what's going on with Capetown 7. Stay tuned. Be right back. Yo, I'm going to let you get right back to it. But I want to talk to you about one of my favorite brands that are out there right now. Actually, I'm going to show you right quick. This is ketogenic coconut bread mix. This is a specialty flour blend that allows me to be able to eat almost whatever cakes that I want. Now, coconut is not typically one of my favorite flavors, but this has absolutely killed. And it's not just because it has great taste, not because it's just easy to make, but it's because it is absolutely not going to destroy my stomach. It is gluten-free, but not nasty. This is something that has been going on, and this company, Health Enhanced Food, has so many other options to be able to do and provide and customize to the needs that I want it to. And this is something that I think we all know, especially in this world. It's hard to eat grain flour nowadays. It's not good. It's destroying the stomach. People are getting new diseases, and you need to have some new alternatives. So I suggest definitely go check out Health Enhanced Foods. See what kind of bread you can make. And no, it takes 20 minutes to be able to make something from it. They have a slew of options, and they are well knowledgeable in the ingredients. Everything is transparent. Everything is made in the U.S. and then some. So in the meantime, if you guys could support the show and go to Health Enhanced Food, and you can use coupon code RUGBYSWAG to be able to get 10% off your first purchase order. That's Rugby Swag. And you guys can go ahead and get your bread journey going on today. That's just your cakes, your pies, your bread, and of course, with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming around, you're going to need it. HealthEnhancedFoods.com. Let's get back to it. All right, y'all, let's get back to it. Let's get into this right away because I don't want to hold off much longer. Y'all, we got Capetown Sevens as our number one subject. And of course, it's obviously we try and be a little bit more USA focused with this one. But this one was again, another toughie. Yo, shout out Argentina, Australia, absolutely topping this. We'll get this done right out the way. Australia is an absolute monster this year. Absolute monster. 2-0, absolutely dominating factor. And Argentina, they're 1-0 in this so far. Obviously, they lost against Fiji in the last round, but hey, coming into this one, Argentina said, hey, we're not taking any victims, all right? We're not taking any victims. We're murdering through, and they ended up doing it, being able to get on top and be able to win this one. Argentina is definitely a dark horse for Olympic gold for next year. I think they saw Fiji do it twice and said, yo, we need to get us some. But this isn't just about Argentina and them. This ain't just about Argentina and them. This is about what's going on. Let's start off with the women's side because that's the side that personally I think has the most hope from the USA end. So going into this, I just want to put it out because I want to lead us into this properly. All right, we had Australia, New Zealand, France, Canada, Fiji, Ireland, and USA at 7 coming out of Dubai. Now, I said on the last one for the USA, I was very disappointed with the way that they played. It felt like they weren't sinking, they weren't living up to the talent that I truly believe that they were able to do. And of course, on top of that, they weren't gelling in on this one. But hey, this is what I appreciate about a team that knows how to adjust when it matters most because these women brought it again. We had the same roster from Dubai, Eliana Marr, Elena Olsen, Sammy Sullivan, Kayla Canet, Alex Cedric, Nia Tapper, captaining, Nicole Haverland, Shetta Emba, Ariana Ramsey, Aleph Kelter, Lauren Doyle, and Jazz Gray. So we had our same crew. This is what I consider is a gold level crew. They got the speed, they got the burst, they got the experience. This might be one of the oldest teams in the 7 series right now, but I do believe that they are absolutely capable of getting a top 1 or 2 finish for the Olympics going into next year. And this is what this is all about. So for me, it was all about, how are we going to be starting off strong? Dubai, coming in 7th, and just a big failure mark early on in pool play was just disappointing. 1 win in pool play, you can't do that, all right? But we came with it. USA had a actually fairly tough pool in Pool C. They were taking on France, Canada, and South Africa. Now, before you guys say anything, oh man, South Africa has definitely improved since the pandemic. Like that is a program in terms of the women's program that has improved steadily since 2021. Prior to the pandemic, absolutely, we're trying to get the pieces back together. Very similar to Fiji. They're not there yet. I'm not saying they're contenders or anything like that, but I'm saying they're not anything to be, sniffed on. All right, you can't just pass them to the side. But the USA, I had predicted that France was probably going to end up being the biggest rival and the biggest difficulty because that is a team. Look, if you guys have seen not Safa and Daya, Sophia Donny, who is from athletes, absolutely gazelle of a runner, absolutely dominant. She's a World Rugby Player of the Year. She's been at this. France is one of the toughest teams to be able to play right now. I felt USA was going to be able to match well against Canada because typically we always have a back and forth against Canada. They win, we win, intercontinental rivalries. What can we say? And then South Africa, I figured they might be a little bit tough, but I had no expectations for them to actually, really suffer from it. And I think the predictions out of pool play were fairly correctly. In the other pools, we had Australia, Fiji, Japan, and Spain for Pool A. And then for Pool B, we had New Zealand, Great Britain, Ireland, and Brazil. Okay. And so, again, we're running a fairly different gamut. It's not as obvious. I think Pool B is particularly difficult. New Zealand, Great Britain, and Ireland are three teams that have been able to grow and increase with time. Australia, Fiji are definitely, top notch right there. Japan and Spain trying to find their way through it. I'm going to answer questions in a moment, but I'm going to get to it once we get to it. So Cameron Poirier, I'm going to get to you, brother. I'm going to get to you. All right. So looking into this Cape Town Sevens, USA 2-1 in it, beating Canada first up, 21-14, the way it's supposed to. You got to start out strong. Canada is also an experienced team, top 14 typically, but I'm glad that USA started off strong. France absolutely got mollywopped, and I think this one exposed a little of the problems that we had going forward. We obviously then took it back against South Africa, beating them 34-0. We lost to France 31-0. Then we went up against Great Britain and took them out in the quarterfinals 19-12. And then we lost in a mollywhopping against Australia 33-5 in the semifinals to ultimately take on New Zealand in the third place match, losing to New Zealand 19-7 for the bronze, finishing fourth for the women. I will take the positive. We improved. Better fourth than seventh. Needed the points. Needed to show that we had the gustos. We still have some of those same problems that we had before, but it was at least something that we can hang our hats on. Now, one thing that I saw from this, and this is the positive. Let me look at the positive first. The women looked like they were back in sync with each other. Looked like they were finally getting their rhythm. I know it's the second one, so sometimes it takes a moment, especially whenever you have so time. But of course, they also play year round, or at least have training year round. So the synchronization is iffy. We're still looking at that. Again, we have the roster, but I think we're trying to find those moments. I think Ariana Ramsey, Sammy Sullivan are looking like they're going to be our version of Perry Baker and Carlin Isle in this moment. So I think that one adds a little factor into what we can do off the edges. Of course, Naya absolutely dominating down the middle. Elef Kelter dominating down the middle. And of course, we keep it strong with our forward. So I'm like what we have. The negatives that I found was that we are still missing tackles. I don't know why we are letting so many breakaways go through. We held this New Zealand team that's very, very tough, still very, very talented. Michaela Blyde getting 200 tries. Only person who has more tries than her is her teammate, Portia Woodman with Cliffy, with 233 tries from at least the last time I looked at it. So I'm not going to be completely thrown off of everything that we're doing, but we still have those things where we need to beat these big teams to be able to get that Olympic gold. And that has to be solved by closing up those middles and not allowing those major breakaways. If they're going to get a score, make them earn it and wear them out so that we can get it later on. And then, like I said, I think ball movement has actually improved since Dubai Sevens. Again, this is a team that is very experienced. They understand each other for the most part. So many veterans. It's a power team when it needs to be. It's a finesse team when it needs to be. We just need them to be at the time consistently against these big teams. Losing to Australia, dominated by Australia twice, not a good sign. Dominated by France twice, not a good sign. But again, a close one against New Zealand. I would prefer us to do better and have a better start. New Zealand really kicked it off early. And then USA versus what we're doing with Great Britain, we need to watch them because they are steadily increasing and getting their synchronization. It's a talented team. They dominated us in 2021 during the Olympics. They can dominate us again by 2024 for the Olympics as they get their legs underneath them. So I think it's something to really be able to pay attention to. Women's standing, obviously USA moved up a spot from 7 to 6. Australia staying at number 1, France staying at number 1, New Zealand moving up to number 3, Fiji dropping, Canada still just above us, dropping down 1 to number 5, Ireland dropping 2 down to 7, Brazil at 8. Let's go. Another team that you guys need to watch for. Great Britain at 9, Japan at 10, South Africa at 11, Spain at 12. to top it off for the HSBC for this one. Next one's not happening until Perth, so we still got a little bit of time to be able to get ourselves back together. You get ourselves all back together. Now, this is where I get super pissed off because this is potential just slowly getting wasted away. That's over at the men's side. So, what can we say about USA men's? Look, let's say straight up, coming out of Dubai Sevens. All right. Made it at least to the quarterfinals. South Africa topping it last week at Dubai Sevens. Argentina number 2, New Zealand number 3, Fiji, Ireland, Samoa, Australia, and USA at 8. France, Great Britain, Spain, Canada to follow up after that in the rankings. So we saw going to the quarterfinals. USA had a favorable pool, was able to at least make it to the quarterfinals, and then they kind of fell apart as it ended, and then we ended up in ultimately in 8th place for Dubai 7. So you'd hope, okay, we're increasing. And there's a little bit of excuse. We're still missing power players like Perry Baker. If he's coming back, I feel like he's waiting for injuries and picking his point in time. We got new guys that are in a sense. Looking at the roster, we got guys that came back. Obviously, we talk about Madison Hughes, Malachi Easdale, Aaron Cummings, Ben Pinkelman. These are veterans, all right? Guys have been in the Olympics before. We've seen them do the work before. We know what they're capable of, and that's not even including guys like Marcus Tupola in that one. And then the rest of it is kind of like, again, you're figuring out this new class. The problem with doing this is that we had like 3 years to figure out a new class, and we still ain't figured out the new class for this one yet. And I don't really feel good about that. And it's starting to show on the field because you get guys like Malachi Easdale, Madison Hughes that are dynamic players. And honestly, for this USA men's team, it is an athletic team. This is a legitimately athletic team. So by all measures, they should be better. It should be much better. But this week, they just got worked. So they had Pool A. They were part of Ireland, South Africa, Great Britain. Now, for me, I thought that there was a chance for them to come out of this pool at least number 2. I figured South Africa was going to come out number 1. That was pretty obvious. South Africa is a dominant team when it comes to 7. It's a dominant program across the board. We know it. Ireland has been increasing substantially since 2019. All right. Obviously, we saw what they did with 2015 up until the Rugby World Cup. And but Ireland Sevens has actually been like legitimately improving over the last 5 years. So I knew that would be a challenge. And then there was Great Britain, where I was like, they're still work in progress, right? Like, you don't know what they're capable of doing fully yet, but you don't feel like they're getting their footing all the way through with it. So it was just like, I don't know. Like, I didn't feel like the U.S. would be incapable of getting out of the quarterfinals because it's been so long since we've not made a quarterfinals in 7s. So I figured it would go, but no. This was not one that we had a good look at. And looking at the other pools, Pool B, we had Fiji, Argentina, France, Spain. I figured Argentina and Fiji were going to come out of that one. France is just not powerful enough on 7s right now. I don't know if they got DuPont yet, but they got to work their way through. And then Pool C had Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Samoa. So Australia and New Zealand was probably where it was going to come out from in that one that I figured. Samoa and Canada were going to be the odd ones out on when it came to it. Well, y'all, the USA absolutely shit the bed on this one. And just absolutely watching the talent potential just drop because of lack of synchronization, poor tackling. So let's look down what the rounds were. So straight up off the bat, they took on Ireland again. A young Ireland team. And hold on, I give it up for Cameron on this one. Cameron Purrier, and I'm actually going to answer his other stuff because he's been legitimate on this. He was saying initially USA women rugby 7s have been turning up for sure. And he was like, facts, plenty of youngish talent out there in the circuit college who can ball. Never made sense to me that the best athletes don't get a shot. There's realness. And I don't know, obviously there's systems that go to it. But looking at this with Ireland with the USA rugby team for this round of Capetown. Kicking off with Ireland, 31-0 molly-whopping by Ireland, absolutely taking it up the middle and just taking advantage of poor tackling. All right, cool, bet. That's one off the board. Came back in against round 2 against South Africa, 26-14. Yo, what? Okay, again, a better game, kind of closing, but a better game off of that. But this is the one that shocked me most of all, losing 26-31 to Great Britain. As I said, Great Britain is trying to get themselves together. This is England, Wales, Scotland. All right. They don't play with each other all year round. This is only for international sevens, basically Olympic sevens teams, that they all come together as one. So for them, they literally have to have time to mesh. I don't care what the talent is. They need to have time to mesh. The U.S. have at least had 2-3 years to be able to mesh together and get themselves. They should be beating Great Britain. So, of course, we don't make it into the quarterfinals, and we're immediately pushed down into the 9th place semifinals for it, where we take on who? Great Britain once again. Great Britain. And we lose to them back-to-back 21-14. And like I said, I want to talk positives. Like I said, they're an athletic group. It's an athletic group of guys. Like, they can play. If you give them a break, they can ball. But my God, the defense is like Swiss cheese. Them dudes be grabbing up above the shoulders, very poor at the lower leg tackle, not making the chase downs, not getting the angles they need to. It is like literally watching, I'm not going to say remedial because it's not remedial. They're better than remedial, but it's very poor defensive rugby. I feel like they work so much on trying to be able to make the ball movement, keep connection, get playoffs, get the kicks, because Madison Hughes be kicking. Madison Hughes be doing what he's supposed to do. And him at scrum half definitely is a very big difference maker versus anybody else that's there. But my goodness, like, you know, this one wasn't, they just are missing when it counts. And so it creates big breakaways for this for teams. And of course, we finished in the 11th place finals against Samoa, beating Samoa 24-19. You know, literally the consolation prize of it all. So it's hard to be able to take it because, again, the fear is what's going to happen when the Olympics comes along, right? Like, the Olympics is where we need to be able to figure out our stuff most of all. And that's where we're trying to get to. Let's actually make a push. We've finished 8th and 9th in the Olympics, 2016 and 2020, 2021, respectively. You know, then the Rugby World Cup sevens finishing at 10th, 9th, 10th again for the Rugby World Cup sevens. And a possibility for one moment, split moment, Perry Baker putting it on to retirement, which I think is awful. That's awful. Final standings for the men's side ends up being Argentina, South Africa, Fiji at 3, New Zealand, Ireland, Australia, Samoa 4-7, France, Canada, and then finally USA at 10, dropping to 10th, two spots to 10th behind Canada, and then Great Britain and Spain to follow it up. So let's get to some of the responses up here because, hey, my boy Cameron was out here doing his thing. So he makes a mention. All right, let's hit that first one. All right. So Cameron goes, hey, why do you think South American rugby doesn't get a lot of publicity, support, even though their history is deep-rooted, plus plenty of success, mainly speaking of Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay? So for this one, I really think it's actually kind of important to take into consideration that we're talking about a money game versus like historical. So in one instance, yes, there has been instances of history where you've seen success for these, particularly I'll say from Argentina and Chile, Uruguay a little bit more, and Paraguay is kind of coming up. Uruguay coming up a little bit more, but Paraguay, but Argentina definitely. When you look at like who's also being able to make maneuvers, it's hard. Argentina has a really big leg up. Like I learned a lot this week about what Argentina is capable of doing. And a lot of the fact that their clubs are like legitimate clubs. Like these are 100-year memberships that have been going on. I mean, these are guys who may or may not be still living in Argentina and are paying into it. So they're able to be able to produce the best constantly, even through the private, are able to produce the best because they don't have to. There's not much required from the players but there's so much loyalty from the alumni that are part of it. So you start to see their rise. And obviously, Argentina has been the power play for South America. Now, when you talk about Chile, Uruguay, and I would actually replace Paraguay and put in Brazil for that one. Again, you talk about what they've been able to do on the next level. So you've seen spot success. I mean, like Brazil beat USA back in 2017, 2016. Uruguay obviously is having their ascension, and they've been up and down with it, but always been a kind of consistent force with it. But typically, whenever you've seen them at the biggest level, they just haven't performed. We saw Chile in the Rugby World Cup. Hard workers, but did not actually like finish up. In sevens, hard workers, but didn't actually finish up. So I think what you're just getting is that they have not been able to get as much attention. One, money into the programs. That's always a thing. How much investment has gone into it. And number two, it's then performing when it matters most. Not necessarily all the point, but when it matters most. But I think you're very right that South America has actually been very, very progressive in their rugby. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of that coming out of it now. And then you talk about Cameron Puryear also talks a little bit about more Central and South American teams on the rise, Brazil, Mexico, Caribbean teams, which I talked about Brazil. I do feel like they should be on that list over Paraguay. I feel like it makes sense to embrace American rugby and improve fixtures with American teams. Again, it goes back to the mindset of it. We're talking South America, North America. If you're talking from South America up, it's all one America. If you're talking North America down, it's North and South America. So you have different governing systems, even though, even with RAN, it's a different system of seriousness that even the U.S. and Canada take versus the Caribbean, Central America, Mexico, and South America take into it. And that's, RAN South, RAN North, Rugby America North, Rugby America South. So again, you can take the theme. I'm a big believer that you need to dominate your continent and then you dominate the rest of the world. But again, this is where attention, this is where money comes in. This is where the investment has to come into figuring out what you got to do with it. And then you start to see the results when it comes to things like the HSBC sevens. This is why I think it's really important that the Challengers Cup is a part of this now, because without the Challengers Cup, you might not have a chance to be able to watch so many teams be able to rise and relegate into this main series so that they can compete and really show what they have to offer. I'll even take it one further on the African side. Like, look at Uganda. Nigeria is about to start making their big ups. Obviously, we know a lot about Kenya. We know about Namibia from 15s. Madagascar with sevens. These are teams that don't get a lot of attention because they're just not put on the biggest stage. But you need to have things that allow it to relegate up. So that's where you get to show it. And then, of course, you talk about USA Sevens, in your opinion, being the best marketing for the sport. I don't know if it's necessarily the best, but it's the most convenient. I do think that multiple games in one day can be very exhausting for a natural crowd, and it's easier to be able to pinpoint a team to be able to do it. And albeit the game is quicker, but I think that can be the curse and a blessing that goes with it. So I think it works as long as we're winning. Whenever we're not, I think it just pushes it down into irrelevant. And then on a world stage, it continues to just kind of undermine the development that can actually come. So, we'll see what happens with that kind of moving forward with what goes on in rugby, especially rugby in this side of the world. All right. So next story coming up, We've been talking a lot of MLR the last couple weeks, y'all. A lot of MLR, and not in positive news. Obviously, it's been surrounded around Toronto shutting down, and then, of course, just this past week, Rugby New York shutting down as well. So what do you do whenever you went from 13 teams down to 11 teams, and you got to figure it out? Well, you find a way to get convenient. And it looks like there is the story that's going around. It was put initially on Cuatro Casa, a law firm, talking about an MLR team going down to Mexico. All right. This would down to Mexico, trying to bring our second Latin American team to the MLR. And honestly, I don't know exactly what to think about it. So let's kind of look at what they had to offer, what they were talking about when they were bringing a team over. So in the news report, Quattro Casa dropped a report, and let me get it up here for you guys because you gotta see this, you gotta experience it. But I'm gonna read it off for the listeners as well. For Quattro Casa, all right. So they put out an announcement saying Rugby Ventures Mexico signs agreement with INDE under which Nuevo Leon will have professional rugby. And so you guys, and I'll talk a little bit more. So let's read this out. Quattro Casa, which is a law firm in Mexico, advised Rugby Ventures Mexico on signing a contract with the Nuevo Leon Institute for Physical Education and Sports to enable its rugby team to play at the new facilities IND is building. The transaction will enable the state of Nuevo Leon to have a professional rugby team. The Monterrey team will be number 13, which actually now would be 12 because clearly they didn't get this in before Rugby New York went to pieces in the Major League Rugby. The team, which does not have an official name yet, is expected to play in the season starting in February 2025. The contract signed also enables Rugby Ventures Mexico to obtain financial support thanks to the facilities and the construction improvements to the new stadium. The Quattro Casas legal team handling this transaction was made up of lawyers Santiago Ferrer, Ivana Munez, Jeronimo Riku, from our Mexico City offices. All right. So this is what we have going on. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, where is Quattro Casas? Where is Nuevo Leon? So apparently it is in the northern part of Mexico near the border of, it looks like Texas and New Mexico. And, again, from a positioning standpoint, I think it makes all the sense in the world to be able to do that. And I think it provides a lot of, at least a diversity, and it kind of speaks to what Cameron was just saying in being able to develop and provide a name for these other countries in the Americas to be able to get a spotlight. Like we just seen it with Argentina doing it for Miami Sharks. I know it's technically Miami Sharks, but it's the Argentinians of Miami Sharks being able to play in a much closer competition of professional rugby. So you get a chance to be able to see this. Now, for me, I don't know so much about if I'm 100% sold on what it is, because it's not going to be the first time that we've had a very remote, let's say, investment group actually like make an announcement that they're going to play a game and then nothing really comes from it. And again, this was also really convenient. So one example that I like using in this was what happened with Kanaloa, Hawaii back in 2020. So if you guys don't know, Kanaloa, Hawaii was a group that was interested in putting an MLR team in Hawaii because they have great Polynesian community. They have a rugby community. Obviously, it's a very high sporting one, especially when it comes to football. It was being put together by these two guys. They were two former All Blacks in Joe Rococo and Jerome Kanu, Joe up top, Jerome at the bottom. So they were really looking in 2020 to be able to put in a team, and they were announced to be able to go into improvement for 2021. All right. So, you kind of have this like little component and piece here that makes it feel like, okay, we'll get something. And if you guys think that Mexico is an oddity, Hawaii is way out there. Like if you want to talk about pushing prices to get out there, Hawaii is 6 hours time zone difference from New York. So like you're talking at least a 5-hour trip, at least from Texas to 5-hour trip from Texas to Hawaii. So this little Mexico one is nothing, but this one was supposed to be an ambitious one. But what seemed to have happened was this happened during the COVID. There wasn't the plan that they felt like MLR had for, tell me if you've heard this, financial stability and a plan to be able to, in this case, come out of COVID. And so ultimately the group didn't feel like they would be economically viable enough to be able to hold a professional team in the MLR and be able to put one in Hawaii at that time, and ultimately canned the whole idea in 2022. Another example of this that we have of a team a group making an announcement, but nothing really coming of it, was MLR Tennessee. I think it was a group out of Nashville, if you're not from around the area, that wanted to put an MLR team, which actually, to be honest with you, Nashville is actually probably a premium spot. The East Coast version of Las Vegas, if you may. They had talked about it in February 2022. Since then, nothing's really come of it. There hasn't been any news, any announcement. Players, again, Tennessee is an area that has support, but what happens? So, for my thoughts when it comes to this, like this Mexico thing is something that I'm just not confident in what the follow through is, especially the convenience of when it was released. I look forward to hearing more. It doesn't seem like any MLR owners or any MLR teams or the MLR office has said anything about this in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. I would love to see a Mexico team because they do have players. It's with Rand, they do have a base out of Mexico City. So there is an positioning where you could have a great stream of eyes to take it in, something very similar to what Telemundo did for the NFL in providing an eyes. And if you guys know how much Latin America really supports for Latin America in respective things, we talk about music. A lot of people don't know that Latin American music is one of the biggest genres of music, and they support. Because when they represent hard. Very similar to country music. Like they represent hard. So there's ideals for it. Let's go into the comments on this. Shout out to my guy Blurtis. Thank you for the support. Keith, my boy. Abel Rosa. It's saying, Mexico sucks at rugby. Bad, but I want them in. I'm not gonna lie. Mexico has definitely struggled. They definitely have their struggles, but I know that they've been working on the program. Shout out to one of our friends of the show, Jen Salomon, who has been an avid progressor, player, and mentor for the Rugby Mexico women's team. You can actually check out her interview on our channel. But yeah, they haven't been able to perform. But again, they don't get normal funding. They're not 24/7, training nationally. It takes a lot of effort. And obviously, it's very centralized to literally one or two regions for Rugby Mexico to be able to actually, show out what they do to be able to improve. So having a professional team would be a nice step up. That's if they, pulled from Mexico. We've known a lot of times that most teams don't just pull from their local base. You're probably going to get some New Zealanders, random South African, a Canadian, and some Irish people that will fall into it and then fill in the gaps with some local Mexican players. But I think at the same time, I think it would be a good look. I think the biggest issue would then be just the visa stuff. Obviously, Canada has some ease with it, but Canada's still pretty tough. Mexico has their own stipulations, and I wonder what the healthcare situation would be in terms of the insurance. I know Mexico actually has really good medical facilities, all things considering, and it's at the border. So, this is an area where a lot of people do their work, but, I don't know. Like it's got upside. I kind of hope it's true, but I'm not going to be betting the horses that it's going to come into fruition. Sometimes it sounds good and people are talking about it, but then when it comes down to like putting rubber to the road, people get freaked out like they did with the investors in New York, and all of a sudden what was a hopeful endeavor ends up being a complete pipe dream, and then we're back to square one. So, let me know what else you guys' thoughts are. I appreciate the conversations. Thank you guys so far. And of course, we're going to continue on this. We will be talking a little bit about what's going on in Japan. But before we get to that, let's get to these commercials, and we'll be right back. Rugby Swag Show. Definitely. Thank you.
Hey everybody, this is just the break train sending out a personal little video diary to all you people out there, where I am going to document me riding most of the way between Singapore and Tokyo for the 2019 Rugby World Cup.
I needed help, and it came from Louisiana.
We in Singapore, baby!
Gift from GiftTime Rugby USA is a extroverted tour de force. But what unites us is a hunger for adventure.
Off to KL, Kuala Lumpur. Woo! Yeah! Woo!
Gift, where are we?
We're in Vietnam!
Morning, Vietnam! Mount Fuji, baby!
Our love of Asian rugby culture.
1, 2, 3, center!
Yeah!
Rugby is starting to develop here in Cambodia for women as well.
Valkyries, the mighty Valkyries!
We're out here, we're running out of energy, we're running out of money, and we're feeling isolated. And yet at that critical moment, friends, family, sometimes complete strangers come on board. Before you know it, we're back in the game.
Tokyo, here we come!
Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. Watch the full adventure at crugby.vhx.tv. That's C like SEE rugby.vhx.tv. Yo, welcome back. I've got a little bit frozen up, so I don't know what happened, if you guys received it or not the same way. But man, look, let's get to this next story because it finally happened. All right, we talked about it all during the Rugby World Cup. We talked about it during the afterward. We talked about it, but it's finally here. It's finally about to happen. It looks like Eddie Jones is now officially a cherry blossom for Japan, taking over as the head coach for Japan Rugby again. All right, Brave Blossom. I'm so sorry, Brave Blossom. And I gotta say, like, this is hilarious because it was the worst kept secret. Like, this man, if you don't remember, he was just over in Australia, completely shat the bed in Australia in the Rugby World Cup, not picking players, poorly developing. But this guy's got a legend. This is like a first-round draft pick that has a mediocre success, but has not fulfilled the agreement as in the times where it mattered most versus when it didn't. And then obviously talks back. Like, I feel like this is what Zach Wilson for the Jets would end up being like. Like, you're just always going to have chances, but your performances in the past, will they make up for what you do in the future? I don't know. But this is one that I thought was really, really interesting because of the fact that everybody does not like this guy. Like, it is wild how much it's disliked. Now, for me, I'll be honest with you. I liked Eddie Jones. I loved what he did with Japan in 2019 and did during the 2015 Rugby World Cups and making them an absolute contender. Like, it was a team that nobody had any expectations of, a team that absolutely just felt like they shocked people, even though they'd got a great system and they have a great element to it. But it's just a system like Japan showed them, and it was under Eddie Jones's watch. What he did in England, I thought it was solid. He was able to get them, at least around the Six Nations. I don't think they won, but around it. And the comment, dude, I gotta put this on. Shout out Average Rugger. The man has said Eddie Jones, the dictator himself. Oh, bald-headed Eddie doing bald-head Nissan Ultimate driver activities in Japan. Let's go. But yeah, like Eddie Jones, he has a reputation. The man is a talker. He talks smack. He talks back to the press. The man really likes to do things his way, whether it is right or whether it is wrong. It's sometimes hard to be able to tell. But I think in this Australia round, man, that was highway robbery in some way, shape, or form. England, I feel like he needs more slack. The ending wasn't so pretty, but he started off really, really well. But I wanted to look down his resume a little bit because I think this one is the one that you just got to get it, because I don't think a lot of people always get it whenever you're outside of the countries about what the Eddie Jones, let's call it the Eddie Jones effect, really actually is. So let's run down his resume. So Eddie Jones, all right, we're going to call it. He was born in Australia, technically Tasmania. He was a former hooker, all right? So they got to be antsy. All hookers got to be antsy because you was smack dab in the middle there, trying to be, catching the ball with your feet while you got these two big guys squeezing you and you got people in front of you squeezing you as well. All right. So he started off coaching 1994, Randwick, 1995 to 1996 at Tokai University over in Japan. 1996, he became Japan national team assistant coach. 1997, the Suntory Sunwolves, the professional team, he took over as assistant coach. 1998 to 2001, went to England, took over as the Brumbies head coach. 2001 to 2005, which one of my buddies who absolutely is a big Australia rugby fan, more league now than union, like most Australians. But this is the time that he truly learned to despise Eddie Jones. 2001 to 2005 as the head coach for the Australian national team. 2006, Eddie Jones took over as technical advisor for the Saracens. 2007, went back to Australia and took over as head coach for Queensland Reds. 2007, went to South Africa to be the technical advisor for South Africa, which means he clearly didn't finish out the Queensland Reds time. 2007 to 2009, went back up to England to be a technical advisor for the Saracens. 2009 to 2012, went back to Japan to take over as the head coach for the Suntory Sunwolves. And 2012 to 2015, which is the area that, we talk about the most, particularly that 2015 year, he took over as Japan national team head coach, where 2015, we saw them have that nice little run and be able to do some damage, set a little culture there. 2015 to 2022, obviously, he was the England national team head coach. I think topped off following at finishing second in the 2019 Rugby World Cup against South Africa, where, obviously South Africa dominated. Well, it was actually a really close game. It was a legitimately close game in 2019. And obviously a toppling failure of a campaign in 2023 going to Australian national team. So at least there's some things that we know is true. The man knows how to maneuver around. And at the same time, he is also has had successes in these respective places. Guy Average Rugby giving a little bit of insight. He is a good coach. We got our second World Cup in 2007 through his antics. So that's for Australia. So being able to do that, I mean, it gives credence, gives credence to why. Like I said, he's a first-round draft pick. He just hasn't performed all the time as a first-round draft pick. And I think people get really antsy on him, especially because of the way he talks. Now, for me, as an American, I think that there is something that goes with a good smack talker, as long as you're able to perform. Like, I do get tired of the regular rugby thing where, like, you got to be, overly respectful. You got to be on par most of the time. And I get it. It's trying to do the gentleman's sport and the hooligans game nonsense. But, I do like somebody who comes with an attitude, because I think that reflects on the rest of the team. And you hit it hard, you play hard, you go hard. But again, as you get older, it's the Bill Belichick effect. If you guys know American football, the Patriots, Bill Belichick, success for a solid 20 plus years and able to get it over. People can say he's a quarterback and say his system, whatever you want to say. But, he showed success. But then whenever it's come to this late stage, the man's not as, he's not as flexible as it is. And I feel like Eddie Jones falls into that. He is my way or the highway, because I've seen the success. And I don't think he believes rugby changes very much, which I do feel like there is possibly validity in that in terms of the way of play. Like, everybody has kind of had their style, whether you're in Northern Hemisphere and England and Italy that have that hard-nosed, punch you in the throat with your forward style, or you have the more free open style like the South Pacific does with their athletes, New Zealand, Australia, Fiji, Samoa, like, you know that these elements typically do the same things over and over and over again. So if his my way or the highway aspect kind of creates some stumbling, I get it. But what he does with Japan, I don't know. Like, Japan wasn't terrible in this Rugby World Cup. I just don't think it felt like they could not perform above what their expectations. And I don't think their coach did a bad job, even though he resigned. I think he did a solid job. My question will be is then can Eddie Jones once again pull out more than what is expected from Japan to be able to go back to being a dominant team? Because it was after 2019 that was kind of the follow-up from the culture of 2015 that Japan moved from being a top-level tier 2 team to a bottom-level tier 1 team, where now they have expectations and, you know, they have you know, money behind them. Everybody knows about, you know, Japan League One and the amount of investment that they have in creating and developing professional players. They're stealing players from Premiership Rugby, just like Top 14, and pulling people from the URC as well. So they have something there. So I think it's kind of like, yo, what's the system that's guiding to it? So I don't know if Eddie Jones is necessarily the one to do it, because again, he's 66, 67 years old. You know, you're trying to vie for another Rugby World Cup. Japan will ultimately make it because Japan's the best team in Asia right now in 15. So that goes almost without saying. But it's just like, I really hope this is kind of his last hurrah. I think getting up there, man, if you haven't made your money by this point, and I know rugby is hard to make money in, but man, the man had $1 million, albeit 5 years, $1 million, 4 years, $1 million like contract for Australia, and didn't even make it a full year. And I know he's probably finishing up being paid out from England, even though I think they stopped paying him when he went to Australia. So it's like, yo, save your money, man, because you can't be jumping around like a hired gun through all these places, man. You almost 70, even though I do believe 70 is young in this day and age. I believe in age inflation, but it's just it's going to be interesting to see if he'll set up a system, or he's going to be mad that maybe the system that he had before no longer functions in the same way that he previously expected it to do. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are all on this one. What do you guys think? Where's your position when it comes to Eddie in Japan? You know, again, a place he's seen success, a place he set up a system, a place he set up a culture. Now, I want to know what your thoughts are that go along with it. Hit us in the DMs, in the comments. I'm get it again, Average Rugger, man. And Eddie... Bro, Average Rugger, you are killing me. You are killing me. I love it. Average Rugger says, any Eddie Baldhead team is usually the fittest team that worked in the days of grinding 15 to 20 phases. Rucks being contested heavily, forwards following the ball everywhere. That's great, especially if you go into open space like you deal with New Zealand, where you need to be able to have ultimate ball control for them. So they're again, there's a valid spot to be able to say where Eddie Jones can fit. Like I said, can Japan be able to take that next leap? They're getting a new set of players, and if their rules change and some of those pro players that have been there for a while can now move and play for the national teams, you know, Japan can be a legitimate beast and an actual contender for the next Rugby World Cup, let alone, you know, whatever we see happens for the Olympics. All right, y'all. All right, so let's move on to the next subject. I always love a good Eddie Jones talk. But yo, I want to talk about Mission Project Popolo. Now, you guys are going to be wondering, like, what the heck is Project Popolo? Okay, I don't know. No worries. I got you. I'm explaining it to you. All right. Shout out to my boy Marquise Goodwin out of California, one of the head refs and one of the guys leading this project. Now, what is Project Popolo? All right. Project Popolo is a dedicated opportunity developmental program for Black and Polynesian rugby refs within the U.S. Rugby Pathways framework. Their initiative is to design and establish a comprehensive 12-month program that offers guidance, mentorship, robust support while advocating for these refs within their local referee organizations. Their primary goal is to significantly enhance the representation of this demographic within the National Referee Development Group and high-performance groups. Now, why is this important? All right. Why does this matter? Well, I think we have consistently always talked about the diversity and the range that goes with rugby. And I think that also speaks a lot to what happens with the refs. Now, there's no secret that people absolutely get pissed off and go off on refs. We got a whole guy in the TMO, Tom Foley, who's just like, dude, I gotta stop playing. I gotta stop doing rugby because these people are threatening my families and we're doing the most, and I gotta take a mental health break and I gotta be done with this for a little bit. Obviously, Nigel Owens, most famous rugby ref ever, retired, but also, took a lot of abuse himself. So it's not about being able to do the abuse, but it's about being able to have referees that I believe are, built to understand how players play at certain ranges. You feel me? Like, you don't want to have a guy who sees maybe a poly player that goes in hard and against maybe like a Europe or a Italy, or going against a England, and you get like a situation that happened in Rugby World Cup with South Africa and England, where there's a misunderstanding between language or attribute of the player. So you want more referees that have a wider range of perspective to go into it and be able to interpret the game so it doesn't disrupt the flow of everything that's going on with it. I think that's fair. I think that's actually really fair. I actually love that for it. And then, of course, within the USA rugby environment, referees literally are about the only people who get paid in rugby in terms of under the MLR stance. And, obviously that even has its own hit and what's not with it. So you want to have it. And unfortunately, we have a huge rugby referee shortage because of things like the abuse, people still wanting to play, people not really understanding the value of being a referee, people not wanting to do refereeing until after they retire, but nobody ever wants to retire because once you play rugby, you're always a rugby player, right? Like, this is consistent. I know because I did the referee courses about 10 years ago. I did it to be able to learn, and which is the other thing, a lot of people doing referee courses to be able to learn reffing so they can find the loopholes to be able to get around so they can play, harder or play better or some nonsense like that. Everybody wants to check in, but nobody's trying to beat a ref. So I think this gives an initiative for those who might not consider this as a projected career, and to be able to talk about it. You guys can actually check out Marquise Goodwin's interview with us. We did it a couple of years ago. It's episode 48, because he talks about the impact of refereeing, and this was right as the shortage was starting to kick in. So this organization, I mean, they're out here, they're just kicking off, and I do like it. This is why I brought it up. They have actually a really strong rugby board. Hold on, I want to bring this up so you guys can kind of see in the U.S. Overseas, you guys might not know about it as much, but in the U.S., these guys have actually some reputability. We see them all the time. As I said, you had like Marquise Goodwin, who obviously takes it. It's very much leading it in terms of the refereeing. Hold on, let me open this more so we can get the full effect. The full effect. Nobody wants to see you like that, Marcus. All right. So to be able to get hold on a second. Okay, there we go. So be able to get the full effect. So if you guys have been playing anything in USA Rugby across the whole nation setup, you guys have arguably been able to interact with one of these refs. Marquise Goodwin, obviously, I said, he's MLR. He is Southern California. He's been overseas, top-notch, elite rugby ref. Then you got Khalil Harrison, who has been huge in Florida, known for his speed, great calls. Like, people loved this guy, Khalil Harrison. Justin Hale, my guy out of Houston, out of Austin, longtime player, longtime ref, really dedicated, very, very vocal, very dedicated to the development of referees in rugby. Elvi Asonye, my Nigerian sister out of Virginia, she is arguably one of the most detailed refs in the game right now, being able to head this. She has been literally everywhere. I don't think she actually stays at home anymore. I think she literally she's I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie with George Clooney and Anna Kendrick, where it's like George Clooney is a flying salesman all the time. That's Elvie. Elvie probably has a home that has a table, a couple plates, and a bed, but literally it's always clean because she's never there, because she is so dedicated to the craft of being a referee. And then you have Alex DeFries. I don't know actually very much about her, but she runs California, and obviously that California side, they have a lot of great players, great referees that come out of that. One of the other things that I think makes this particularly more interesting as well is that they have a strong rugby board along with them. Now, some of the people that are on this board that I think really help develop the credibility for it are people like Kevin Battle. Now, if you don't know who Kevin Battle is huge within the youth rugby development community. He has an academy in Northern California. He is the director for MLR, for youth initiatives for the MLR. So actually legitimately working on the pathway system, integral in helping develop the urban rugby championships. And he's also the former director of rugby for the now defunct LA Guiltinis, so that man is embedded in rugby. Another person who is massive for the credibility is Richie Walker. If you guys don't know who Richie Walker is a former USA women's national team coach, was with them in 2017 when they went to Ireland, finished out, I think, 5th in Ireland, which I consider one of the best USA women's teams of all time. And I know we got the ones that won in 1980, in 1991 and 1995, 1994. But I honestly think this team was just more talented, and that was under Richie Walker. He's currently the head of scouting for Premier Rugby Sevens as well. So he's got an eye for talent, obviously. And then you have a person that we talked about before in Brandon Sparks, who is now the women's high performance general manager, formerly with the general manager for the Utah Warriors of the MLR. So you got a lot to be able to work within this element to be able to, be like, okay, these guys might be able to position something. My guy Marcus, and a lot of people I don't know if you know me, I for my events have been primarily diverse, black and brown referees who have run it both of the last two events, 2021 and then obviously 2023 this last year. Amazing. And being able to have something like the Project Popolo, being able to be a component of this, and now having a more direct way that is also, according to Marquise, subsidized by USA Rugby to help the development. And USA Rugby has helped with providing black and brown refs for my event as well. So I really do like what they got going on. I look forward to seeing more about it. And of course, if you guys want to be able to read up more about Project Popolo, you guys can go to Project Popolo. That's Popolo spelled POPOLO.com, and read up more about them, get in contact. And if you're interested in being a ref and getting paid $150, or if you get to the level you can get paid by NCR freaking $1,500 an event to go ref, gone in and get it. Take an opportunity, man. Be in the rugby community. We got to grow in all the ways possible, and not having enough refs is definitely not the best way to be able to help us all. So I like I said, I enjoy what they have, and we'll go from there. All right, y'all. So gonna get to our next set of ads, but before you guys go, we're gonna talk a little bit of the Women's Rugby World Cup. They dropped some announcements. I forgot how close it is, man. Yo, we got the Olympics, then we got the Women's Rugby World Cup directly afterwards, and then we got the Men's Rugby World Cup 2 years after that. Man, we got a lot happening going on right now. So guys, just hang tight, stay still. We're gonna be right back after these messages. Y'all, if you are trying to be able to get your name out, whether it's for business, whether it's for work, whether you're just trying to do something personal for a friend or family, you need to stop utilizing social media as the sole place where you put all your stuff. You don't know when the algorithms are going to change on you, and you don't know whenever the rules are going to change. So what seemed like it was okay yesterday might not be today. And what does that mean? You need to have your own home, and that means having your own website. That's where Green Geeks comes into play. Now, Green Geeks is the place where you can create and build your website in the cleanest host in the game. I'm talking about environmentally. Not only that, they'll provide you with a free domain name and free template builder so that you don't even have to think about having to create your website. I've used Green Geeks for almost a decade now, and I have been so satisfied by everything that they've been able to provide for me. No matter whether or not I know what I'm doing or I don't, they have 24/7 support for me every single time I need a question answered, or I need something to be changed, or I need to be updated on any information. And the best part about this is that I'm not limited to any of the websites that need to be used. It uses a WordPress foundation, which allows me to have access to limitless amounts of templates that are available to be able to use for any version of a website that I want to have. And the best thing about it, it costs me less than $5 per month to do. And that can be the same for you. All I needed to do is click the link in the bio. If you're listening, definitely click it in the description. And if you're watching, definitely click it in the description as well. But you guys, this is something that everybody should do. You don't have to just do e-commerce. Your website is the place where you have control over what you want. That's your house, not their house. And go ahead and get that with Green Geeks. Once again, click the link in the description to be able to get your first year at under $5 per month. Guys, it's the best decision. I'm telling you. Let's get back to it. Yo, y'all, welcome back. So let's just get right into it. Look. Women's Rugby World Cup out here making announcements for their venues. And I think it's actually kind of exciting that they're already doing this. This is that 2-year prep. I've been a big believer that one of the reasons that I feel like rugby has a chance outside of its doom and gloom is because of the fact that the women's side has had to be very, very creative. If you guys listened to my last episode last week, I really talked about the fact that the women have been cursed and also been provided the advantage of being very underestimated. And so they make decisions like a broke industry, which means they're creative. They make things that they have to stand out a little bit. And of course, you know, you got to love being able to see what they're going to be able to do moving forward next. So with the Rugby World Cup 2025, we already have establishment. It's going to end up being on August 22nd to September 27th, 2025. It's going to be the biggest Rugby World Cup, women's Rugby World Cup that we've ever had, with 16 teams, 32 matches, and 8 venues. They put together kind of a dope video. Shout out to my boy Leandro Akanji out of Argentina. This man is probably one of the biggest, I gotta say, one of the biggest promoters of women's rugby as a guy, because obviously there's other women that have really done it, but as a guy, probably one of easily the biggest promoters of women's rugby. The man is connected. But he dropped the video for the Women's England 2025 reveal. I'm going to talk it out a little bit for those who aren't going to be able to see this, but you know, get a chance to take a look at this. So, all right, check this out. All right, so the games are going to be kicking off at the United Stadium at Sunderland and ending at Twickenham Stadium. To go to York Community Stadium, Alford Community Stadium in Manchester, Franklin Gardens in Northampton, Ashton Gate, Bristol, Brighton and Hove Albion Stadium in Brighton and Hove, Sandy Park in Exeter, and trajectorying the entirety of the England community. All right, so for whatever it's worth, hey, look, you know, they're hitting all the stadiums where their premiership, the premiership rugby women's teams are going to all be at, which I think is actually a really good look. Give them a chance to obviously promote them and it gives it a chance to provide a new look. Now, why do I actually have an ulterior reason for why I want to talk about this, because I think this is going to be really significant to the development of the development of the women's rugby game. So the last Rugby World Cup was 2021, 2022, after the pandemic, that was in New Zealand. I think a lot of it was lauded for being one of the highest attended. It had arguably 150,000 people who attended the games, a completely sold out stadium for the England versus New Zealand finals match, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Numbers. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't really believe those numbers. Not because I don't think that they sold out. I do think they sold out. I just don't think the viewership was as good as 2017 when it really was knocked off. Why? Because New Zealand was locked up. They were locked up. So like the 2021 New Zealand Rugby World Cup was limited. Players were limited, audience limited. Everybody that went to it lived in New Zealand. And you basically didn't have, I know New Zealand was active because they were isolated. But I also feel like they didn't have anything else to do, so they went to it. Whereas for me, I think the pinnacle that this 2025 Rugby World Cup actually is going to be going up against, and literally in actual record numbers, is the 2017. And look, if you listen to me, I will laud this Rugby World Cup for mother freaking days, because this one was a phenomenal Rugby World Cup. This one legitimately was like a game-changing Rugby World Cup. Like, I'm talking about, it had better viewership than probably most games. It had peak viewership of 2.3 and 3.2 million viewers for a game. It had 45 million views across all platforms. The stadiums are small. This was in Ireland. Obviously, the stadiums are small. They only said they had about 45,000 people who attended the games. And this was games that were not greatly promoted. All right. But they were open. They were like legitimately accessible for once, online and on TV, but mainly online. And these were performances. All right. You had the beast mode of Portia Woodman. You had oh my goodness. You had our rugby sevens women backlining for our rugby 15s forwards, and just like absolutely dominant. England showing out. England versus New Zealand final. France with Safa and Daya really showing out. Like some of the best runs that I think that we'd had in rugby. You had people like oh my goodness. I always forget her name, and it's so bad. So I'm not going to say it because it's embarrassing, because she is legitimately one of my favorite players, and I can't believe it just slipped in my mind at this very moment. But like it was so good. So I actually think that this 2025 Rugby World Cup actually has a chance to absolutely surpass anything that last 2021, 2022 Rugby World Cup actually did, and subsequently what the 2017 did. So let me make my points. Number one, 2021, 2022 Rugby World Cup suffered from distance. Like the timing was terrible for most Western nations, from England to the US, South Africa. Not South Africa, maybe so much. Well, no, South Africa as well too, because they're kind of lined up in the same time zone as Europe. South America, like most of your viewership didn't watch the game. Like they didn't watch the game. It was terribly promoted, horribly promoted, because they didn't just have any time. Like they really didn't have any time to do what they wanted to do. Including for that, I do think that the play was good, but again, everybody was so underwhelmed by the lack of playtime that they had during the pandemic. So you're just not getting the best out of everybody who is doing their thing. So I don't feel like that one was a great representation, even though they tried to really laud it up because of the attendance in person, which is great. New Zealanders and really showing up for it. But this one, my goodness, we got, again, England coming back, home team as strong as ever. We got, I feel like maybe not the U.S., but France has really built up as a 15s program, really shown out. Ireland is ascending. Canada is killing it. It's all within a time zone where your biggest populations of viewership actually exist, which would be, again, obviously England, the U.S. I think Brazil is in it, so you're going to have that market, even though it's still growing, but you're going to be seeing it come out from there. I do expect to see a lot more of the African nations kicking in because there's a lot more development now in the women's rugby programs than there was in 2021 and definitely since 2017. Significant development from there. And of course, the stadiums are bigger. You got the premiership audience that's already existing in that area. There's no distractions like there was for WXV, which add that one, WXV being one of the dynamic adders to the storyline of developing into Rugby World Cup 2025. I give them all the credit. I think this one will end up being the biggest and the standard bearer for women's Rugby World Cups moving forward. I hope to see the dynamic play. That's why I really want the women to show up. I kind of hope some of the Rugby Sevens women kind of like do their final send-offs because they're going to be in their early 30s, most of them. So you're going to have to start stepping back from sevens. But I really, really hope like people like Ileana Marr, Nia Tapper, homie out of UCF, really get a chance to show exactly what they can do from the 15 side, because they didn't do it this year because of everything. Rugby World Cup Sevens was happening the next year, and then the Olympics, and they had to pick and choose which one they really wanted to get done. So you didn't get to be able to see our full force. And a lot of people will say like, oh no, the program should be absolutely separated. And I say, you're out of your damn mind. Like, no, we are best when everybody is on the field at the exact same time. Chris Thomas, my goodness. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry. I'm a massive fan. And since your UCF days, I don't know why it slipped my mind, but Chris Thomas coming back, one last hurrah. That would be the U.S. team that I think actually dominates in that. Sammy Sullivan bring her in because she does 15s as well too. So I think that we could see something like that happen, and I think you could see a huge jump up for that Women's Rugby World Cup 2025. Just my thing. All right. So we're gonna go one more subject for the day, and this one I think is legitimately hilarious, which was Australia NRL National Rugby League doing a promo on the NFL for their games coming up in March. So let me put some context and background that are over here before I throw in what we're talking about. So if you guys don't know, NRL is trying to expand themselves into the U.S. A lot of people I know have been playing rugby league in the U.S. on their off season for a while now, maybe the last 2-3 years, definitely during the pandemic. A lot of belief is that NRL, the rugby league, probably has a closer relationship to American football, and by definition, probably could be adopted faster, though NRL suffers from branding and issues from the wider scope, rugby union being the dominant factor, of course. But, Australia has absolutely shunned rugby union because of their follies and risen NRL, where rugby league and Australian Football League are the two most dominant sports in that country. But they're really trying to make a push, and they're going to be featuring over at Allegiant Stadium on March 2nd in next year. So it's supposed to feature the Manly Seawolves versus the Rabbitohs. If you guys don't know, the Rabbitohs is the team that Russell Crowe is an owner on, and then also Sydney Roosters versus the Brisbane Broncos. I only know about them so much because of the fact that shout out to the Rugby Odds on Rugby Wrap Up with Matt McCarthy, George Hook, and the champ John Bradford Latefield, the former wrestling champion. We talk about them all the time, so I've had to follow up on NRL a lot more, which is legitimately fun. I get it. And I think NRL has done a better job in creating entertainment than rugby union has. But again, they just simply don't have the global brand that rugby union has, especially whenever you're talking about the name rugby. That is very dominated by rugby union. But when I talk about being able to do the entertainment factors, they've done things before with The Rock for State of the Nation. And this week they did a promo with the NFL at the Vikings versus Raiders game at Allegiant Stadium this weekend, which honestly is probably the worst game they could have done it for. But I give them credit. Like, you don't know until you know. But that was a terrible game. It was such an awful game. 3-0 finish on it. But I felt like they set it up. They had two players, Aaron Woods and Campbell Graham, doing the interview. And you know what? I'm not going to continue talking about it. Let me just show you what it is, and I'm going to give you my breakdown from there.
We welcome you back to Las Vegas. Halftime between the Vikings and Raiders, and we are scoreless at the half on Fox. So we welcome you back into the booth. That's Mark Sanchez. I'm Kevin Kugler. It's kind of exciting. For the first time ever, the National Rugby League is going to open up its season on American soil. The season opening doubleheader is going to be here on March 2nd. Now, you have a football in your hands, but you got the chance to toss around a rugby with some of the guys on the field before the game.
I did a little pregame rugby scrum, if you will, but this was nice. I had a decent spiral, but then I tried to throw it overhand, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't work the same. But they were excellent guys. They're excited to be back here and excited to play in this venue. They were all Raidered out. I told them to head over to the Black Hole. They'll see something incredible. They love this NFL stuff and all the fans, so we're happy to welcome them.
Well, and Laura Oakman welcomes a couple of them. She's down on the field with them right now, Laura.
I was like, get to me already. Enough with Mark doing this. I'm with Aaron Woods and Campbell Graham, and I'm going to start with you, Aaron, because in American football, we watched international fans fall in love with the sport because the NFL's been playing games in other countries. It's your turn now. How are you going to get Americans to fall in love with rugby?
I think the Americans love the collusion in sport, and Vegas is the entertainment capital. We want to bring the main game for Australia that we love doing it back home. And then there's no helmets, there's no pads. We're just in there to make collision and then just get the fans pumped up like they are today.
Good luck following that, Campbell. How are you going to pump up Americans?
Yeah, I think we're just going to try and get out here and bash each other, really. But yeah, we want to come out here and entertain. And I think we've got the product to do that. So I'm really looking forward to coming back here in March and putting on a show.
Well, speaking of putting on a show, I want you guys to look at the monitor for a second, because this is the play that has been dominating the NFL this year. The tush push, the bum push. I don't know what you guys call it. I should have asked you that. But our big debate is that the quintessential football play or rugby scrum? Which one is it?
I would call it a rugby league scrum, but the only thing is you can't push and you can't have the ball at the back. You've just got to push, get your heads in, get the collision, and then just let them go at the back and pass, let the pretty boys do all the work.
I can't wait to see how this place is going to be filled with rugby fans. I'm already fired up about that. Kevin, back up to you guys.
Yeah, this is going to be so cool. The season opening doubleheader March 2nd here in Las Vegas. For more information on the National Rugby League coming to Allegiant.
So, all right. So obviously, it was a solid presentation. I made a comment about this whenever it was on the on X, where I was saying, like, the NRL paid for a promo on Fox broadcast of an NFL game. Like, I need us to repeat this again. They paid for a direct promo on the highest viewed sport in America. Unfortunately, terrible game to do it. But point is, they did it. An in-game promo of a national game. Union, step it up. My God. And honestly, that's my complete sentiment. I give a lot of credit because when you do not have the headway, you have to do things that are risky. And to be able to get a promo and an in-game one, middle of the game, during it, I give them all the credit in the world for that, because that is called really making marketing moves for your value. It's not just like saying stuff. It's not just like, oh, we're up and available. Like, those are nice components, but you got to get like top of the funnel awareness. And I don't know how many people actually would have watched it. I don't even know how it may have played during the actual game itself, whether it was during the halftime show or maybe it was just on the local networks or something like that. But I really love the fact that they really took that risk. That's a lot of money to do that, by the way. Like, it's different than the commercial. That's a lot of money, which shows you how serious they are about getting it over here in Las Vegas. It actually made me, well, again, the guys were not the greatest promo guys, but they had some solid energy. Talking about the scrums was kind of funny because of the fact that, there's no, active scrums allowed in rugby league. But again, this is how you try and find ways to connect with the audience where they're at, as opposed to like hoping that they just come to you. Like, and this is something that I want for rugby union. Like, I give a shout out. Like, NRL has done a significantly better job than union has in terms of connecting with the pop culture. Like, far better, leaps and bounds better. And by definition, union should definitely already have more money than league does across the board, at least from even the rugby, World Rugby level of things. But you don't see that much creativity going in, and even something as simple as this. So I thought that was a lot to be able to take from it. I love what Average Rugger says about this. He's like, yo, Rugby League will pass union if World Rugby continues the dictatorship of viewing rights and not letting creators grow the game. Shake my head. I 100% agree. He followed up with it saying, how are we supposed to get the American audience to learn more about rugby if it's not regularly network TV? So why not let creators push the game ahead of 2031? I agree. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the fact that it needs to be on network TV, but I do believe that it needs to be on places that people view network. So other sporting events, which is basically the only real value that network TV has as of this point. And then subsequently utilizing your creators, just like you said, is utilizing your creators and being able to advance the game a lot more forward through, just like natural ways where people are at. Like you need to be able to, again, see people where I would love to see a rugby promo during the PGA tournament, or a rugby promo that happens during the and not just a board, like an actual promo that happens during tennis. Like, really congregate the sport where it feels like it's everywhere, even if it's not. Because you do lose a lot of audience by hoping that they'll come. Like, the Field of Dreams thing isn't that. And I talked about this last week, so I'm not going to reiterate too much, but we want to get away from that Field of Dreams element. So I don't know what NRL is going to do. I don't even know if they're going to get a lot of return for what they have done, but I know that they've set way better seeds that will be sown than I feel like a lot of other rugby union properties in the U.S. have done. From a direct standpoint, you got to hear the marketing. So I'll look for NRL to keep coming in with information. If this is where they stop, then more power to you. You had one good element and then you kind of fumbled it the rest of the way. But if they come with a storyline and give explanation and give people reason, this could be the element that shows what the Rugby World Cup needs to do for 2031 and 2033 moving forward, so that maybe people will make sure they come, and World Rugby and the rest of the rugby world community will stop panicking and worrying about whether it should stay in the U.S. or not, or yada, 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 yada. But I'm a big advocate on this one. And let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know what your thoughts are with how it goes as well, too. I want to hear it in the comments. Thank you so much, Average Rugger, continuing to be able to be a participant. And thank you for y'all that are watching right now. We got one more. All right. We got one more subject left, and we're going to call it into a conclusion. We got one more ad. I got you guys. No worries. Just check it out, obviously, to support. And we'll be right back with some more additional comments from some of our writers. Before I let you guys get back to it, I want you guys to go check out rugbyoutletmall.com. Yo, this is the place where we are bringing in casual rugby wear. We're trying to set up the designs, make sure that we are giving you something to represent rugby. That's not just a jersey, and that's not just your kit. It is something that you and your friends and your mama and your kids and your parents and your best friend and your wife and your husband and your boyfriend and girlfriend and your they, and just make sure that everybody is able to rock some rugby gear without having to necessarily be stuck to any one type of rugby gear. We want it for your day-to-day, everyday life. I know that's redundant, but that's how beautiful we want it to be. You know, definitely check out our most recent update, our Rugby Swag Show shirts. They're available now for purchase. You guys can get it. And for any first-time buyers, I'm talking to you. Yo, I'm giving you guys 20% off the first purchase. Take as many as you want, 20% off the first purchase. And of course, if you guys get on the newsletter, you guys are going to see more coupons and discounts that come along with that as well too. But 20% off, and all you guys need to use is coupon code GROW Rugby. That is GREAUX Rugby. Great quality gear, definitely something for your present, something to be able to give. Obviously, we just got past the year, so that means birthdays are coming out. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and you have so much more. Yo, hook your family, hook your people up with what's right. Hook your people up with what's right. Go to rugbyoutletmall.com and enjoy out, and of course, it helps support the show and our media endeavors. Let's get you back. Yo, thank you guys so much. Yo, we've got our last segment. It's one that I've been wanting to do. And yo, a lot of praise and thank you to everyone who's been participating. Yo, I'm going to call it out again. Abel Rosas, Cameron Purrier, Blurdish, Keith Coop, Random Bots, Average Rugger. Thank you all so much for being a participant in the live, continuing the conversation. But of course, we also have our conversation that happen when it comes to the actual videos afterwards. And you know, a lot of times I just answer them in the comments, especially on YouTube. But this time I wanted to kind of talk about them because I think they were great. These are great responses, great engagement, and I think something that everybody should ponder. So kind of first off, coming into it, I wanted to go with one that we got a few days ago by I Am Nutty 8471. He was speaking about my review, my suggestions on what MLR and rugby should truly do to be able to improve themselves. So I Am Nutty 8471 says, very American approach to a solution as a non-American. I can say there is bound to be some truth there, but it wouldn't fly too much elsewhere. It would be better to fly the amateur flag to avoid the NFL becoming boring tag, 3 hours of 60 minutes with highlight videos, most of the gameplay. And you know, and he's speaking again, obviously, to how to reach audiences. I know one person, I can't remember if it was him or somebody else, had explained to me about how South Africa views rugby, that it's very, you know, here in the moment. You kind of take, you know, people would rather go to the pub and watch a game with their friends, and then if they want to, they can take the train to the stadium, be able to go play a game or something to that effect. And not play a game, to go watch a game and something to that effect. And it allows an idea of like, okay, you know, it can be a communal thing. My only pushback would be is that if it was sustainable, I don't know if there would be so much worry about like what happened with the URC or where South Africa would be. I don't think South Africa would have left Super Rugby. And you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. But I think a lot of the issues have been monetary. And I think a lot of the issues are, you know, not being able to fill up the stadiums, or if you do, it's for very specific games, not being able to have enough streams. And the key reason I was saying what I did was to not just bring the fans that are established, but to be able to bring fans that are casuals who might have been on the fringe. Like if you guys remember the movie Invictus, and obviously, you know, talking about the 1995 Rugby World Cup win by South Africa in South Africa, while Nelson Mandela Madiba was a rugby fan, his presence provided rugby casuals who were either against the box or had just never thought about them at all to be able to come to the game, which helped promote more of the countrywide unity around the win of this Rugby World Cup. And I think that's what I'm trying to be able to bring on that. It's very difficult to be able to create a sustainable professional league. And I know you said, rather run the amateur rugby flag, but I think that's kind of plays a little bit of the problem. You need spectators. From the amateur side, of course, you get players for days. It's a very selective unit. And as my co-host George Hook said for Rugby Odds, the game has changed because it is less of a player's game and more of a spectator's game. And so you have these elements of abuse and stuff like that. But I do believe that you need to have a way to bring in casuals, especially like here in the U.S. And I think places like England, you're starting to see that run low, that there's not as many people playing rugby, and hence it's suffering the product of the professional or the upward mobility that goes along with it. Even additionally, New Zealand is a different case, and obviously it's a smaller population, but you have those who obviously it's a very focused rugby country, but there's just also nothing else to be able to do that much. And there's the upward mobility that goes as being a player that can add to jobs that are not necessarily in rugby that help use the sport to promote. So if you don't have those tools to be able to, increase that, I don't know if you're able to really show out as much as you really want to with your rugby. So that was my position. Let me know what you think, brother. Let me know what you think, or sister. I don't know for sure. I got USA Rugby League fan. Let me put this correctly. What are you doing? USA Rugby League fan. USA Rugby League Union fan. Great conversation with this guy. Said, I've made the road trip from LA to San Diego to watch Union games. Then LA came and I volunteered for the Giltinis. I paid for my gas and spent my Saturdays helping out on game day. I spent over $1,000 on MLR gear, MLR logo, and Giltini stuff. I follow religiously. We as fans need to bring people to the games, buy them a $20 ticket and support the clubs. It's up to us fans. This product is the best in America, better than NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and MLS. It's number one in my opinion. We need to bring people on board. Thank you so much, USA Rugby League Union fan. We've talked multiple times, so I want to give you your props exactly where it's at in the person. Look, again, it kind of reaches back to what I was saying with Nutty. Like, you have to find ways of bringing casuals in. He was speaking in regards to the episode from last week and me talking about the MLR being in trouble and why it's functionally in a red flag arena. And he speaks to it. You do need to be bringing fans. I think one thing that really does suffer is that there's not central elements. This is why I was talking about real estate in the last episode, and you guys can check it out or watch it on YouTube where I have MLR. What do you call it? MLR solutions for the 6 solutions for MLR and rugby in whole video. You can go absolutely check it out. But I was like, look, you need to have a place where people can congregate. One thing, and I've learned about this with Argentina rugby, is Argentina is a broke nation. Like, it wasn't always before, but it's a broke nation. Like, economically, they are in the hole. But a lot of almost all their players come from very elite areas. So that's a little bit different. But the most important thing is that they come from clubs with very, very high sustainable loyalty that has been there for hundreds of years, that passed down through generations. Now, obviously, for us, that's what we use for universities. But you need to have a place where you can streamline people centrally so you can kind of push them down the funnel, so it makes the interest of being able to bring them to the game. Like, not everybody's going to be like, Rugby Union League fan, because not everyone's going to give the time, but everybody can give for their entertainment value. They'll give a little bit for something that's convenient back to them. It's why the pubs were always such a significant component of rugby, because it was the pub, then the rugby teams were unionized or centralized around that pub and built around it. My boy Mick Feely, who I mentioned a lot of times, talked about how his club had like one membership fee, and it gave them access to locker rooms, it gave them access to the restaurant, to give them access to weight rooms, to give them access to the field, multiple fields, and then the team, then you develop from there. So you need to have a place where people can be able to congregate to. I don't necessarily always say it needs to be a pub, because I don't necessarily believe that we should always be pushing heavy drinking when it comes to rugby anymore. I think that's a little bit of an archaic placement, but we just want a gathering spot where people are willing to invest money on a regular basis, and then be able to use that to be able to develop. And that allows people to bring whole groups over to professional leagues. This is why we have what do they call it? Boosters for college. That's just guys that have come together under the guise of supporting this university and their sports athletic program and paying out to be able to provide it. Like, it is exactly what's needed. And I think because of the club system that we have it now, it's a little difficult. I don't think it's just because it's just splintered, but I don't think that the system has ever been put into place. They've all been started as nonprofits because it was easier in terms of like not having to deal with taxes. You could receive donations where people could get tax-free revenue, and it was an element to induce giving while giving a value back that couldn't be replaced with a transaction. So it made sense why we've been doing it, but I do believe that as time goes, we want to be able to move towards maybe a more club or centralized model system where we're bringing in people who might not even play rugby. So it might be meaning bringing partnerships, and that helps bring people towards the professional, the collegiate, the youth, which is really most important, and provide the memories that allow cycling. And then from that point on, you provide a value for those who might not be playing anymore, but are able to go in. And this isn't a new concept. I think a lot of people have put this into position, but it's part of what creates that like unifying fraternal network, sorority network, and creates that element of specialness that goes along with the rugby. And it also makes it so that transaction piece works. We do it for memberships, obviously, for unions or for conferences, but I'm talking about from the club itself, and that should be all encompassing and being able to pull that off. So creating the value and then being able to see where that goes for most of the programs from that standpoint. Next, and this one was in reference to the conversation about Maro Itoje going from the Saracens possibly to somewhere else because of the fact that they don't have money. This was from Neil392. Neil said, problem is the salary cap has been cut by $2.5 million. Up to now has been able to have 2 marquee players outside the salary cap. From next year, only allowed 1. So they have a choice between Itoje and Farrell. This is the Saracens, Owen Farrell, whichever they picked, someone was going to be upset. And again, this goes back to a lot of the economic disenfranchisement that's happening with rugby right now. There's definitely a rugby recession that's occurring where we're seeing a lot of teams going. While I think the women's side is increasing, the men's side is depreciating with rapidity. And I don't know if there's been enough creative design to be able to stop it before it gets out of control. But it's something that needs to be done, and if it doesn't, you get affected, and you'll see Maro Itoje follow a Dan Carter to top 14 like he did way before, go to Japan League One and see where the money is being spit out because they have just better models that work for them. And Premiership Rugby will continue to suffer, and you'll see that another London Irish, Worcester Warriors, Wasps RFC happen to another team, maybe Bristol, maybe Sales, maybe Exeter. Like, you don't know. Wales is already going through a lot of issues themselves, and they will probably have to contract their teams into one. So this is not unusual, but it's part of what is it. So, all right, y'all. My voice is just about done. Let this all load up. I want to thank you guys so much for definitely check out some of our other podcasts, our interviews, some of the past episodes. Definitely catch up. You can always check us out on YouTube, sectionalizing some of these programs. I know they can be long, they can be short, depends on the time of the day and the week. And of course, always, if you can, subscribe to the YouTube page. subscribe to the podcast. You can subscribe at youtube.com/GiftTimeRugby. And of course, you can go onto Spotify or Apple Podcasts and follow us. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a comment. Let us know. It helps us be able to build up the algorithm. If you feel like this is a good conversation, good programming, we definitely need the attention. So I definitely always appreciate it one way or another. Love the conversation. I'm learning. I get to learn from you guys, and just it's so much fun. And we're going to be having guests coming back again for 2024. So I'm super excited for that one. But I think we might be coming also to, we got one more episode of this year, and then we're going to be done for the Christmas week and early part of the New Year's. I thank you guys so much for the attention. Thank you so much for spending time. Thank you for your love of rugby and being able to take it. I hope you guys know that I hope you're happy. I hope that you are I even forgot my own thing. I hope that you're happy. I hope that you are blessed, and I hope that you know that you are highly favored. Until next time, y'all, peace.